We're back then today with another build guide video for Last Epoch. In today's video we'll look at 5 awesome builds for new players. So we'll cover one build per mastery class. All of these builds have been updated for patch 1.0, so all the tooltips you'll see, all the skill trees you'll see, they've all been updated, and we have updated links to lastepochtools.com for each of the 5 different builds for version 1.0 as well. Now I'll just mention in regards to these videos and the builds that we are showing off here, they're new player builds, so the criteria that I use is there's very few uniques on these builds, and the ones we use are easy to farm. I'll tell you where you farm them as well. It's a simple build, it doesn't have a complex rotation, it's easy to understand the itemization on it, and most importantly the builds do well at endgame, and they certainly do very well at endgame as well. So let's go in now. The first class we'll actually look at will be the Acolyte. I'll just mention very quickly then with each of these builds, it will be a quick overview we give in this video because the full build planner updated all the way for patch 1.0 is available in Last Epoch Tools. Now the first build is one of my personal favourites, it's the Fire Necromancer. The only real change we have with patch 1.0 is that we now drop some points into the Warlock tree. We can get some nice bonuses for this build here. Very simple build to play, puts out a ton of damage, and it's pretty easy to itemise for as well. With the setup we run, we have 9 skeleton archers, 5 pyromancers, 3 skeleton vanguards and a pyre golem, so we've got our own undead army, which is really awesome. In regards to gear for this build, there's 3 uniques that we would use. The first is Reach of the Grave. It's equipable at level 5, it's a common drop, and you can farm this from the Stolen Lands, but it's really easy to get this one. We have Ribbons of Blood, which offers your minions a ton of survivability because they can't be crit. Equip this at level 53, and it's a Fall of the Outcasts, and when you defeat the boss in this monolith, there's a 50-50 chance that they'll drop this, so it won't take you long to get it at all. For the final one, I'm slightly cheating a little bit here, but this is so perfect for the build I had to include it. It is a rare drop, which doesn't mean it's too bad, but it's not as common as a common drop as the name would suggest. But this is Logi's Hunger, it's level 82, this is the Spirit of Fire monolith, and it's the bosses that would actually drop this. Given the fact you know it's the bosses, it's not too bad a unique to farm. In regards to the skills we're using, we've got Summon Skeleton. So with this skill and the setup we're running, we'll remove Skeleton Warriors from the summon pool, and we've got a total of 9 Skeleton Archers firing fire arrows all over the screen. We have Summon Golem. With this, we convert this to a Pyre Golem to take advantage of all the fire tags we have with this build. We also focus on increasing the Golem's health, armour and threat generation. This is essentially our tank for our other minions. We have Skeleton Mage next. This is another skill where we have it, so you can only have the fire variants that can be summoned, so they are pyromancers, and we have a 100% increased projectile chance for them, and casting the skill will not only summon a mage, but will allow you to teleport as well, so this frees up a skill on our skill bar. The next skill we have is Dreadshade. This really ramps up the damage on our ranged minions that will be grouped together. It actually gives them a whopping 60% more damage and 24% increased cast speed, which is absolutely huge. We run the spec with this where the affected minion that this is placed on won't lose its health, but instead it will take damage. However, we do have our golem that's actually our tank, and it's pulling all the aggro, so that affected summon really shouldn't be getting targeted at all, so it doesn't matter too much that they will take additional damage. The final skill we have here is Summon Volatile Zombie. So this is our main spender. It's a nice additional damage source, but will also kill any enemies, and this includes bosses when they're below 16% health and they're damaged by this skill, because we've got a kill threshold set up on this. We also spec into it to change the zombies from doing physical to fire damage, and they'll also vomit on their targets as well. For the passive point allocation here, we have 21 points going into Acolyte, 82 going into Necro, and then with the new Warlock class for patch 1.0 we have 10 points going into that as well. So that is the Fire Necromancer, awesome build. Let's have a look at the next one. The next build here is the Mage and the Sorcerer Mastery. There's only one slight change to this build for patch 1.0. The build anyway, it's all about fire damage and the Spread in Flames ailment. With this we use fireballs to add a ton of ignite stacks to enemies. This is a great build for getting used to know how damage over time in the game works. For the build we use 3 uniques and 2 set items, but they're all either common or uncommon rarity. The first unique we have here is Calamity. This isn't mandatory for the build, but it does help us build up our ignite stacks. You can use this at level 7 and you farm it from the Black Sun timeline. We then have the awesome Cinder Song. Rarity on this is uncommon and it's equipped at level 40. You farm it from the Stolen Lands timeline, and you can see from the modifiers on this is custom made for our Fireball build. For the relic, we're using Soulfire, which is really an Acolyte unique, but it works great here as well. It's a common drop, equipable at level 34, and it's farmed from the Last Rune timeline. Our two set items, they are rings. You've got Scorching Grasp. This is equipable at level 35, farmed from the Age of Winter, and it gives us fire damage and ignite chance. The other ring is Invoker Static Touch. Now, whilst this is more geared for lightning builds, it works great on this setup, and it gives us a ton of ward and also gives us a 2-set bonus for this particular item set. Skill wise, we have Fireball first here. This is our main spender and what we'll constantly be spamming. We have this set up to fire multiple fireballs. It will pierce and it also homes in targets as well. We will be able to add a ton of ignite stacks using this. Flame Ward we use to generate ward, and you have the option of having this set up to auto cast as well because there is no casting animation on it. Teleport allows us to keep our distance from enemies. We have it set up so it creates mirror images to distract the enemies, but on top of that as well we've got it set up so our next skill doesn't consume any mana. The next skill we have is Meteor, so we have this so that it would normally cost a ton of mana and it will fire off meteors all over the screen, but because we use Teleport before using this, it will cost us 0 mana, which is awesome. Also, when we use this, it will give us a buff for 6 seconds. It increases our cast speed and our fire penetration. The final skill we have here is Frostwall. With the changes that happened with patch 1.0, I would say this is probably optional now. If you want to switch it out, you could use the likes of Black Hole instead for some crowd control. With this anyway, the setup we run, we have it so it gives us some additional dot damage and we convert it to fire as well. In regards to your passive skill tree allocation, we have 20 points into Mage, 49 into Sorcerer and 44 into Rune Master. And Rune Master's the tree we actually hit first because it's got some really nice bonuses in it. Our next build here is a Shadow Dagger Blade Dancer. This build has insane mobility and you can just zip over all the levels with it. It makes use of a unique Blade Dancer mechanic called Shadows and also an ailment called Shadow Daggers. This deals a ton of damage when you apply 4 stacks, and we have Fire and Forget skills we can use to apply this ailment. With patch 1.0 we did get a nerf to Shadow Daggers. The base damage went from 90 to 68 and the added damage effectiveness went from 450 down to 340. Despite that, it is still a really powerful skill and without a doubt a viable build for the rogue. Gear wise here, we don't actually need any uniques for this build to work at all. The only thing I would say is look out for crit damage whenever you can get it as Shadow Daggers, which is the ailment we are applying. These have 100% crit rate, so they massively benefit from crit damage. In regards to the skills, the first one we have here is Shift. This is our movement ability. This increases our dodge rate and movement speed after using it, and most importantly when we use it, we create a shadow which will then in turn use Shadow Cascade and Umbro Blades as well. Our next skill then is Umbro Daggers. So with this, it's normally an active skill where you throw out daggers, but with the setup we're running here, we'll cast it when we use Shift and it creates a homing blade that whirls round. This will seek out the nearest enemies and it applies stacks of the Shadow Daggers to them as well. We then have Smoke Bomb next. This is a great defensive skill. It allows us to dodge the next attack we take as well as generate shadows, and these in turn will then use Shadow Cascade as well as Umbro Blades. Skill number 4 here is Shadow Cascade. This is a huge AoE melee attack. It will do a ton of damage. I do have this on my right click so I can spam it when I need to, but most of the time the shadows that we create will be enough to kill any enemies that will come close to us anyway. Finishing up, we have Lethal Mirage. This skill will generate shadows. It provides us with immunity during the casting animation. It does a huge amount of damage, and on top of that it's got a whopping 18% kill threshold on it, so if an enemy is below 18% health when we use this, we'll instantly kill them, and that applies to bosses as well. In regards to the passive point allocation here, we have 22 points going into Rogue, 70 into Blade Dancer, 13 into the Falconer that was added with 1.0, and then 8 into Marksman. So this is another great build, can do endgame content easily with the bonus that it requires 0 uniques, and as much as it had a slight nerf for 1.0, it is still a very powerful build. Our next build here is the Primalist and the Beastmaster Mastery. This is a hybrid melee and minion build. Our minions are wolves and we'll have up to 6 of these. It's easy to gear up, easy to play as well. On top of that, at end game you can actually convert it to a squirrel build where you'll use a specific unique and it turns your wolves into squirrels, and yes, it is as awesome as it sounds. With patch 1.0 this build actually got a buff with the wolves now dealing 10% more damage on average and also gaining up to +2 to the summon wolf skill as well. For the gear here we have 3 uniques we use, they're all common rarity. The first one is Artor's Legacy, equipable at level 44, farm it from the Black Sun. This gives us an additional companion, and with patch 1.0 it gives us that up to the additional +2 skill points to the summon wolf skill as well. We have the Claw, level 50, you equip this and it allows you to summon wolves up to our companion limit. There's a lower level version of this called the Fang which you can get as well. The Claw has more stats on it however. And then we have Ribbons of Blood. Again, this is one we looked at earlier on in the video. This gives our wolves flat damage, life leech, and it makes it so they can't be crit. The first skill that we have here is Summon Wolves, so these will provide the majority of our damage, and we spec into this to provide us with an extra companion slot, and also so that when they howl they gain an additional 120% more damage, which is absolutely huge. Swipe will be the main spender for our Beastmaster. It has a kill threshold of 14% on it, which is great for bosses, as well as the ability to summon Spirit Wolves, and these scale off both strength stat and minion damage as well. The next skill then is Fury Leap. This provides us with some mobility but also offers a nice flat melee buff for 4 seconds for both the Beastmaster and the wolves when we use it. Also with this, when we leap, our wolves will leap with us as well. So if a boss is about to do a particularly strong attack that may one-shot you, then you can leap out the way and your wolves will follow you as well there. Skill number 4 is Warcry. This gives us 100% crit chance to the Beastmaster and the wolves when we use it, and it also has a buff called Berserk that massively increases our damage and attack speed and allows us to essentially face tank some bosses due to the life leech we'll be getting back on it given how fast we'll actually be attacking. The final skill is Summon Frenzy Totem. This gives Frenzy to the Beastmaster and wolves, which with the setup we're running, that actually works out at roughly 25% additional attack speed. Also with this, our wolves gain a flat 20 melee physical damage, which is huge. Flat damage is really powerful in the game, and a massive 250% critical strike chance as well, so these can really up your damage. For the passive skill point allocation here, we have 25 points going into Primalist, 81 going into Beastmaster, and then 7 going into Druid. So the Summon Wolves setup was a pretty awesome one prior to patch 1.0, and with the patch, as we mentioned a moment ago, it got even better. It got a buff, which is fantastic, so this is an awesome new player build. The final build we have then is possibly my favourite lazy farming build in the game. Using autocast, we can just hold down right click for most of our playtime with this. We'll zoom around the levels, demolishing absolutely everything. This build is the Warpath Echo Void Knight. We have 3 uniques that work great with this particular build. They are Dream Form. This is equipable at level 15. It gives us void damage, void penetration, and even block chance, even though it's a sword and not a shield. You can easily use this unique all the way up to level 80. It really is that powerful. For the body armour slot we have Titan Heart. This is equipable at level 41. You farm it from the Blood, Frost and Death timeline. When we have this on with our two-handed sword, we'll take 15% less damage, and we also get up to 40% increased health and melee damage with this as well. Final unique is Siphon of Anguish. This gives us melee and void life leech, increased movement speed, and a chance to apply an ailment called Doom that makes affected targets take additional melee damage. You'll farm this particular unique from the Shade of Oribus. This is the boss fights on the edges of the monolith webs. For the skills here, we start off with the very common action RPG skill, the trusty old spin to win setup. So this allows us to keep moving, clearing through the story, and the monoliths takes no time at all with this. We have it set up so that we get an echo over hero that will spin away doing even more damage for us, so we can spin on and we can leave the echo behind us to take out enemies. So that we can constantly use this, we spec into a few nodes that reduce the mana cost on it and also make it so that we regenerate mana when we are spinning as well. Our next skill here is Void Cleave, and we'll save this for when we need to take out a particularly troublesome elite or boss. It'll do damage in a huge chunk, and the way this works as well is we actually get a massive buff on it if we've been channeling Warpath for 2 seconds. So with the setup on running, I'll hold down right click for Warpath. I've actually got a mouse that's got the numeric keypad on the side. What I'll do while still holding down right click, I'll press the key for Void Cleave, it will cast it, and then I'll just go straight back into the animation for my Warpath again. It's a real nice setup, and again it makes it nice and easy. My finger essentially never leaves that right click button. Our next skill here is Rebuke. This is an incredible defensive skill. It did get a bit of a nerf with patch 1.0, but it's still incredibly strong, and we just need to slightly change our point allocation to have a really nice uptime on it. The next skill we have is Anomaly. With this one we'll auto cast it. It creates a time bubble around us that will follow us. It gives us increased crit chance, it gives us cast speed, and also with this it will shred the enemy's void resistance if they come in contact with the bubble as well. This has an instant cast animation, so when we're auto casting it, it won't create a hitch in a warpath or slow it down at all. The final skill is Volatile Reversal. We use this to both regain mana after using Void Cleave and also to do additional damage to enemies. The skill is probably the highest skill ceiling out of the skills that we've looked at in this video, and you need to be careful when you use it, because if you use it at the wrong time, it can actually put you in more danger than you were in before you actually used it. So Echo Void Knight, very easy to play build, again easy to itemize as well like the other builds. If you're looking for a lazy farming build, this is up there with one of the best. So that is 5 new player builds to get you started off in Last Epoch, and again as mentioned, these have all been updated for patch 1.0 and the full build planners are available on lastepochtools.com. I will look to work on a slightly longer version in this video. I say slightly longer, it'll be much longer version in this video where I actually cover 15 builds, so that's one build for each of the different masteries in the game, so keep out an eye for that one as well. But if this video has been helpful, please do take the time to like, share and subscribe button, and I'll see you all again soon.